Let's start then presenting our guests for today. Sylvanus Currie, Marco Berchtold from Peri, Sylvanus Currie from RWE, and Joachim Krausert from Docuware. And this will be led by Kseniya Verpeta, our Director of Sales. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to our fantastic panel. So I had an opportunity to talk with some of you today in the morning, and I asked you about your expectations of today's event, and most of you said that you want, or this microphone doesn't work anymore, that you want to hear the stories from our customers, you want to hear about their experience and their journey with project operations. I hope you can hear me. So we'll give up on that thing. As I said, today we have this fantastic panel, and I was waiting for this opportunity for about 2 years because, as you know, project operations is kind of new product on the market if you compare it to other Dynamics modules. And we regularly organize similar kind of meetings between our existing and potential customers, but mainly for the reference purposes. But this conversation goes beyond that. So we want to address maybe some challenges and lessons learned that our customers have already experienced and let them talk rather than proMX or Microsoft talks about the product. So I will start with the quick introduction round. Could you please briefly tell about your company, about your role, and how your company operates? Maybe let's start with you, Sylvanus.
Okay. Hi. As I said, I'm Sylvanus Currie. I work in the IT department of RWE generation, RWE being electricity generator. I'm based in the UK. RWE is a German company in Essen, and my introduction and work with Dynamics and project operations, and it's only been project operations. My work with Dynamics for that, let's say, it's in support of those business units, RWE generation, that have engaged with it. When I transferred into the generation business, there was already a PSA solution in place for RWE Technology, one of their business companies, and we were in the process of planning, developing the upgrade into project operations. That was about 4 years ago now. I've been with them, and the deployment of project operations in the end has been successful. Took a while, but in the end has been successful, such that as RWE generation has grown, with other business areas like hydrogen, batteries, there are different technologies and business opportunities, then now Dynamics, and in particular project operations, is being seen as a way to get on, help the business get up and running sooner, faster.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue. I'm Marco, I'm 30 years old. I'm working for Peri as Head of Engineering Performance and Steering. Started working for Peri in 2013. I think most of the people don't know Peri because it's more like a hidden champion, I would call it, because we're coming from the construction industry. We are mainly supplying the scaffolding and formwork for construction sites, but we are also offering engineering services. So therefore we have globally in our subsidiaries about 1,500 engineers working for us, and that's also our main target group for project operations. So where we are using project operations for is mainly for project planning, resource planning, and time recording for engineering. And our journey with project operations started in 2021. So when the project was quite new, when we had a pilot phase together with proMX, and therefore we also decided to directly start with project operations and not start with PSA and do later on the migration. We're still in the rollout process, so we didn't roll out the tool fully to our global subsidiaries, but our plan is that we finalize this by end of this year, beginning of next year. Yeah.
So hi, my name is Joachim. I'm working for Docuware. We are an ECM solution software. We are operating worldwide. We're having last week the celebration for the 20,000th customer we are having. We are using operations, as Marco said, for the project planning, for the resource planning, and for getting the money in. We started in 2018 with PSA, and the best thing from PSA was getting rid of it while migrating to Project Operations September 2023. It works much better now, and yeah, we faced some issues, some problems where we can talk right now about later on. Thanks.
Yeah, hi. Sorry for being late. My train has been cancelled in Cologne, so I had to go by car. My name is Fabian Fischer. I'm working for the Sylvanus Group. We are a group of company which is specialized in the area of software for field service management, field sales management, and field logistics. I'm working as a VP operations for the Sylvanus Group in the field service management area, and we are, as I said, specialized in everything what happens in the field from a software perspective. Everything is not true. We are focusing on two core areas. The first core area is that we are doing a lot of optimization use cases. So we own several algorithms which enable us to provide optimization scenarios to our customers, meaning, for example, we are able to schedule technicians towards their calls or orders, so you name it, in seconds down to not even a second. So we are able to plan a new order within milliseconds, but it's fully optimized. So we are able to do real optimization on that. We're not looking for gaps in the schedule. We're having a new schedule after that. And as far as we know, this is the USP of our products. And the other part is process optimization. So we are offering, for example, mobile applications where the engineers or the surveyors or the sales people are able to capture reports, to post materials they used on the job, to actually plan new appointments with their customers based on the optimization. This is one example for process optimization. We got self-services for the customers of our customers, so this is basically what we're doing. And the main question was when we started with Project Operations, right? Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, we also started, and I think you said that as well, in 2021 when it came on the market. It was our first project portfolio management software, which you could call a project portfolio management software. We had several tries before. None of them worked out, obviously, so we had a super quick project. I'm a big fan of Project Operations and proMX, to be clear about that. We had Manuel as our consultant starting the project, and I think we went live in 3 or 4 weeks. So we had a super small agile project, and we had the first iteration of Project Operations running with, I think, time entries, planning, resource planning. To be honest, we are small, so we got, I think, 30 resources in there. Running after, as I said, a few weeks. Yeah, and since then we are deploying new functionalities and having a lot of fun with the software.
So I would like to ask other colleagues on this panel, what were the key drivers behind your decision to adopt Project Operations for your organization?
The key driver was, as Fabian mentioned, that we have a structured way to plan our projects, to work with our projects. We also have small projects. I was impressed hearing this morning that you can have these huge projects. The average duration of our projects is 7 to 25 days. We used different systems before, starting with having nothing, doing anything, using OneNote and other things, coming to some US systems which did not work out, and first with project operations, and I don't want to go back to PSA, but I would say first with project operations it worked out. Even the 5 years we had with PSA have been really challenging because it was not easy to handle, and project operations is a huge step, that all the people work in the same way, that the planning fits well, that we have a resource planning which is decentralized, so the colleagues accept the software, they work each and every day, and it is a great benefit for us that the 50 people around the world for PS working with the software.
Yes, from our side, I think the key drivers were on one side to standardize the tooling and the processes itself in our subsidiaries in engineering for project planning and resource planning itself, because where we come from is that we didn't have any kind of standard tool in place. We had Excel sheets, we had other third-party tools, whatever you can think of. And the other key driver was that we had a really outdated solution for time recording for engineering, which we also wanted to substitute. And then the decision was made for project operations.
Yes, again, a little bit second-hand because I'm from IT, but I know that for technology and the new business units taking it on, it's the way that the project operations tools and platforms can easily marry to stated policies. You know, RW is a relatively, it's aged without being long in the tooth, so it's a long-standing organisation, so it has well-documented processes. But if the tools don't match the processes, then always there's give and take on how well an organisation meets it. But in the terms of CRM and project operations, that's why it was taken on board, because the standardisation was explicit with enough customisation to say, right, well, this is a design process and we're meeting it, and everybody's working the same way.
For us it's basically the same what everybody already had said. I would have summed it up to getting rid of the mess, because basically, like you said, before project operations, for us project management was a plethora of Excel sheets and so on. And we were looking for the transparency project operations delivered us, but one very important thing, I think you just mentioned it as well, which I would like to point out, is the flexibility it brings because of the Power Platform and behind. We are quite heavily, I assume a bit too heavy, using Power Automate and customization possibilities, but those, so transparency and the ability to be flexible with it and fast in terms of we need something and a few days later we can have it because we can do that on our own.
So I know we have talked about that there are obvious enhancements that you see after adopting project operations on the IT side. But have you noticed, or are you aware about business improvements after implementation of project operations for your business organization?
Yes, we speeded up our projects. The billing of the project at the end or of the single milestones is clearly defined. So we are not fighting anymore for searching revenues because someone forgot to set a time entry or do something, and it empowers us that we can do maximum 50% more projects now than we did before because we are more structured, we have a better forecast, we can see how the resources, the people are planned. So this was a huge benefit for the business side as well.
Yeah, from our side we also had several improvements and several achievements also from business side. Fabian mentioned, I think in my point of view, the most important one, creating transparency, because I told you beforehand, we we didn't have a standard tool in place. That means also we didn't have any kind of transparency. We also weren't able to do some kind of benchmarking between the subsidiaries. So it was all more or less a black box. The only thing we had were reports about time entries, so looking into the past. With the introduction of project operations, of course, we were able to look also into the planning part. So meanwhile, we're also setting up reports, defining KPIs for instance, planning accuracy and so on. So this was a big step forwards, I would say. On the other hand, also I mentioned the importance of standardization. So also therefore we thought about and we implemented things like standardizing project plans, so setting up templates the users in the subsidiary should use for setting up their project plans, because also in our business it's more or less like this. Of course we have a big variety of projects, but usually the standard work packages are always the same. Of course then in the activities we have differences, but usually the major work packages are all the same. Therefore, of course, we also then had some kind of saves in terms of spending efforts in setting up project plans. And well, what we always get back also from our users is, of course, the big improvement also in terms of the time entries functionality, because what we had beforehand in place was not usable anymore, I would call it.
Yeah, on a slightly different tack, I mentioned before that the project operations being in place, it has made opportunities that the business see, it's made it a lot easier for them to jump on them. So I mentioned, going into different areas like battery technology, hydrogen. From experience though of the end users, one of the big advantages is the integration with the rest of the Microsoft platform. Different project operation solutions that we've got either integrate with SharePoint or with Outlook. We've investigated Teams, but we've got our own internal processes to go through and understand that. But that integration, I know that the end users have actually felt the benefits of that. They love getting their Outlook, if they choose to, related messages all in the one portal in the Dynamics portal, so they can just track their work that way, if that's how they choose to work.
So when we started with the implementation, there was basically one quite important KPI for us, which we tracked before in an okayish way, and then with project operations in a quite detailed and transparent way, and this is billability, so the quote of hours delivered, which then is billed to our customers. And that was a KPI which had a horrible state when I came into the company, and also stayed a while at that status. And then we implemented project operations, and project operations itself did not raise the billability. That is training, coaching on what can you bill without fooling the customer, because that's also not the target, but what is fair to bill. But it gave transparency, it gave automatic transparency. We created a report which has been sent out every week to every consultant, seeing what is my billability. So this is the KPI we massively changed together with the implementation of project operations. I think we started somewhere around 40%, and now we are at somewhere near 75%. We are changing that from time to time depending on the strategy. I would like to add one more KPI which we are currently tracking. I think that could also be interesting, because we're changing our strategy a bit, or we have, like nearly every software developer. We have changed our strategy from, let's say, one-time revenue to recurring revenue. So basically we see consulting a bit more as a, in Germany would say Mittel zum Zweck. I don't get the good English translation, if somebody could help me. So we're doing consulting not to earn money with consulting, but to implement our software. And together with the SaaS strategy and the recurring revenue strategy, we took away the focus of the billability a bit. It's still there, but it's not that important anymore. But we have implemented a way to to report which project will deliver which monthly recurring revenue. And then now we get reports where we can see as soon as this project goes live, we got a monthly revenue of 10,000 euros in plus. And this is extremely helpful to prioritize projects, to prioritize development, and to see what happens if we change something in this project. And as I said, in my eyes, this is one of the big advantages, being able to combine this data in basically hours, if you have to put some new fields in a form, if not directly.
So a lot of our customers who transitioned to project operations previously used other project management solutions. My question is, what have you used before? And if you still use some other project management tools, like for example Planner, in addition to what you have now?
I mentioned it before that we did not really have a good solution, and I already forget the system from US we had in place. So there is no real comparison during the work with, but the big advantage, even in the phase when we decided which tool to go, is that it's integrated in the Microsoft environment. We are working with Teams, with Outlook, with Power Automate. Low-code, no-code is a part of our own software. So this is the big advantage that is already there. You don't need to program something to bring something new in, and as it was said before, you're open to do anything with a Power Platform, and all the people are ready to do this, so this is the big advantage for operations.
Yeah, from our side, as I've mentioned, we had also no standard tool in place. We had several other third-party tools like Excel. I'm not sure if this was the one you used before, because I think it's also from US, but not here. T-cards, Planner, yeah. Whatever, but the biggest advantage, I think that's also something we get back from our users, is of course, well, all those third-party tools were not integrated because they were not our standard. So now having project operations in place, being linked to our standard tools on a Dynamics platform like the sales module, which is used by our sales colleagues, having the customer service module in place, the marketing module, and so on. Well, we have that seamless integration, which saves effort in terms of I don't have to enter project relevant data, copy it manual from system A to the Excel sheet or system B, whatever. I think this was really appreciated, and I think other topics is it's just like also enabling global collaboration, having having the same view on the central project, also if multiple subsidiaries are collaborating together. I think this also was a big improvement, and something similar we're also facing, like Fabian mentioned beforehand, is simply having something in place, enabling also data-driven decisions. So having a resource schedule in place, what I could show to my sales and tell him, yeah, I'm fully booked for this, and next week these are the projects you've prioritized last week. So how should I deal now with the new requirement you've put in there? So having something on the screen I could use for further discussions, is a great step forward, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say that for where we are in RWE and for the opportunities POs opened up, our probably next challenge is to put our PO initialization process in front of more people, so that, because we are seeing that even though we've got PO, we've got the experience, it's projects and opportunities are still seemingly starting up in Excel, and then they realize, oh, it's getting a bit out of hand, and oh, we've got PO on site, so somebody has to go around and convince them. So I think within RWE we need to sort of elevate ourselves so that it's not a case of converting from Excel, people thinking, oh, I can just knock up a quick spreadsheet. We show them, well, actually, you can knock up a quick PO solution. That's where we need to be, I think.
Yeah, we started in a quite special project management software, which basically was our own resource planning software, because when I came to the company, we were a 50 people company, and I found out that it's quite usual for small software companies to try to build everything on our own. We stopped doing that quite soon. And then we started, I think, with, I don't know the name, it was just a desktop application, not integrated with any server or something like that. Then we went to our first Microsoft product, the online version of the project server. That worked out, but it was not really flexible, and it's not comparable to project operations in any way. Then we started comparing portfolio management software. And at the end, it was a very clear decision for project operations because of the flexibility and the integration it brings. And I think those are really the main advantages we gain from it since then, because we're quite heavily integrated by now. For example, we're using Business Central as our ERP system, and the whole billing process is completely integrated and automated. And we've done some more things of that, and that would have been more difficult with other products we have seen, which are also have a good placement in the market, but they would not have to be able to do it in that way.
Now the most interesting part. So what were the challenges during the implementation phase for your organizations, and how you managed to overcome them?
The biggest challenge was the decision that was at the beginning made from the management with which third party we would go, because we've chosen the cheapest offer that time, and figured quickly out that the people gave their best from that company, but they did not have any clue on that time project service automation. They had some kind of customization template. They installed this template, and that's it. And I think we struggled, and we're still struggling with that. And my clear message would be, whenever doing something, use the right partner. And it's no advertisement now, but we figured out working with proMX brought another level. We had really colleagues working with which had experience, and before, when I asked how long does this needs to be done, this change, I ever heard, oh, this could last for 3 weeks. And the first call we had with Manuel, and he said, oh, it's done in 15 minutes. And I said, okay, there's a little difference in between, and this was the most successful change. Lasts so long to convince our people, our internal team, to work with an external partner again, because they also lost trust to that partner. But it's the biggest thing for me, and the most valuable factor to have the experts working with. So use the right partner, and for me it's definitely proMX.
We didn't prepare that. Just
No, stop. Hello? Can we do a video with you later?
Okay, biggest challenge for us was definitely change management. So it was not directly linked to the tool itself. I think it was also linked to our organization, the way how we worked in the past. Also there we are currently in a parallel journey, I would say, driving our organization more into having, from the central perspective, also process ownership, having then also more or less the permission to define and really standards and processes which have to be used and which are not optional, I would call it like that. And besides that, of course, well, if you do an initial setup, of course it never works forever, and this is the status quo how it remains. So we also had to get to a point where the tool itself was then yeah, working in a proper way for our subsidiaries, I would call it like that. That of course also took some time, although we tried to get already requirements from different sizes of subsidiaries, from regions and so on, by having added them to the pilot phase up front. But anyway, I think we improved the tool in a really good way over the last 2 years, and I would say the status quo is quite good, and that's also the way we could follow on then completing the rollout and then looking into the future.
Right. So again, more from an IT perspective, but I remember the PSA to PO upgrade. Technically, for me, sitting back, it's not a big deal because it's all there in the cloud. But I'm aware that basically our proMX partners were having to handhold it again because, and this is another advantage of PO over PSA that I know of. The customizations aren't so heavy that they become unmaintainable. That's what PSA left us with. So then to migrate to PO was a hell of a lot of hand-holding because the way customizations could be done in PSA. Now in PO you can still customize, but in a way that is much more maintainable. From a technical point of view, the whole process of implementing PO internally within RWE meant that we were technically asking questions about processes. So I'm not saying people didn't know technically the answer, or it was like, okay, well, we want an Azure function to talk to our SharePoint and our Power Platform. Oh yeah, we can do that. Well, what's the process? And the kind of organization we are, we had to sort of lead, say, well, we need this process definition so that we know, oh, you go there for the account, you go there for the service, and then it's all hooked up, sort of thing.
Basically, both my points have been already said. Interestingly enough, we had the same experience, not with the project operations. There we did it right directly and went to proMX from the beginning, but we had the same experience with our CRM implementation, and there afterwards we then moved to proMX. What I would have done differently if I would implement project operations today, that would not have been possible when we started implementing because it was so early in the PO process. I would try to stick a bit more to the standard than we did. And funny enough, basically that is what we are telling our customers regarding our software. It's a bit like giving relationship tips to your best friend. So yeah, because right now we got functionality which we had to customize in the earlier days, which is now available, or where we can migrate directly because our functionality looks completely different. And this will be one of the next projects to get a bit rid of these customizations and to stick a bit more to the standard too. Because I just learned that this helps for the next version.
Thank you. Basically, that would be my next question. What would be your recommendations to the customers who are now considering implementation of project operations? And maybe you can give some tips and tell about your learned lessons.
I think Fabian said it before, stay close to the standard. Look what is in the standard there, try to use this, try to use this easy to use things, because there's a lot of configuration within project operations, so there's maybe not a big need for customizations or for development. Stay with the standard and try to keep it as simple as it is possible for the use case you have.
nothing really to be added from my end. I'm just thinking about, no, I think the most important thing I just have in mind was also going together with what I said earlier, the topic of change management, so having then also all stakeholders being involved, setting eventually in parallel also the pillars for organizational changes, for changes in the processes, using additional tools like, I don't know, setting up in parallel, for instance, a functional group directive or whatever. I think this would be just my recommendation.
Yeah, two things, just reinforce that. I think the project operations tooling, one of the big benefits to the organisation is that it will lead you to ask the right questions about putting governance in place. Say, so this is how we take on new projects, this is how we build them up, because we want this information down the line. These are the KPIs that we want to measure, so it helps with that. I did have another thought, just gone. It'll come back to it.
Yeah, it probably comes back. I think my point goes also quite near to your one. Mine would be to, for sure, build up knowledge regarding dynamics and project operations, but as soon as possible, or at the same time, start also, if not already the case, building up Power BI knowledge, because reporting in project operations is, let's say, okay, but we're not using it. But we are, sorry? Yeah. But we're not using it. We are quite heavily using Power BI for all kinds of reports, which derive from our Dynamics environment. So I would recommend being with Power BI as soon as possible when using Dynamics.
Which is that's reminded me. The other sort of lesson learned order is a corollary to customizing PO less is invest in the Power Platform as a whole more, because Power BI and all the other things that the business, where the business would get most advantage is in the customizing of the Power Platform around the standard tools like PO and everything else, because that's where your specialty is, and the Power Platform allows for you to put your specialties into your own little modules while still referencing all that standard data that comes with Dynamics.
All right. So I will give an opportunity to our audience to ask questions. I will be pretty quick.
Yeah, thanks guys. The question, when you're saying using standard in project operations or not customize the UIs in the business process, is there any ratio where you can say you're doing 5% development and the rest is standard? Is the difference between your four?
So, from my point of view, when we moved to PO, we did customize. You know, there are things, there are fields, there are definitions that are in there that we just don't use, or we want to call something else. But we learned a certain degree of saying, okay, when we're customizing, we learn to evaluate the effort in that customization from our experience with PSA and converting from PSA to PO. That's what I would say. So it's not an outright banner bound customizing, but it's to understand it, so that, again, not to toot their horn too much, they've had enough, it's their event, but proMX do have expertise in this area, and they can guide and say, well, look, you know, that particular, if you want to rename it, no problem. But if you want to rename that, maybe you want to think about it. And this is where their expertise comes in. And I would definitely, from my experience, recommend to follow that, because it makes everything more maintainable, which is, from my IT side, that's what I'm worried about is, you know, you can always keep it going, you know, when nobody else is around.
What about the other ones?
I've got nearly the same opinion. So you were asking for a quarter. I think that is difficult. Regarding code, I would say it's somewhere below 10%, even lower. So I think the 5% could be for product operations. I think our CRM implementation has a bit more code. And even for the customization layer, so even for the Power Platform, I would always recommend to do that thoughtful. So do I really need that, or is what is existing good enough for me? Because it's just not too easy to spoil that in the future. You need a really good documentation and things like that. So I would always recommend to do it as few as possible.
Cool, thank you. Maybe one addition, I would put a focus on customization on the flow you are working within the project, because we are working in different kind of projects, industries have different needs. So I would invest more in the flow, that you have some validation, some automation, and that there are some fields automatically locked. While going from one stage to the next, this is where we put too less effort in, so that anyone could change something that should not be changed in a later stage of the project. So this is maybe something where would I put the focus on, have a flow fitting to your needs.
Yeah, behind.
I have a question coming from the end user perspective. The effort by the end users, by the switch from PSA to PO, is this high? And do these resources, the end user resources, need other skills or other capabilities? And did you manage it by trainings, or how you took this challenge?
On our side, it was more a wow effect for the end users, because everything they were not happy with was gone with the update, or not everything, but almost everything was gone with the update from PSA to PO, especially working with that breakdown structure and the schedule and the tasks, getting familiar with project for the web, which looks like or is similar like the planner. So this is where the most focus from the end user was in. We did some training, but we got the feedback. Now everything is easier than before. Let's give it a try, and whenever we have questions, we will come back to you.
Okay.
We didn't migrate so
Yeah, and I, like I said, I'm from IT, so I can't speak for the end user experience of migration. From the business lead's perspective, I know there was a lot of effort around things like the work breakdown structure, which had been customized or whatever in PSA. I know that was a concern, but from actual end users, I'm not aware that there was any significant training, additional training or education required in transferring from PSO to PO. But I am aware that things like the WBS and things like that, for the business lead in the project, they were a concern. But I'm not aware of any additional requirements or educational requirements for end users.
Any other questions? No? Dan?
Thank you so much for your participation today. We haven't paid for the answers, maybe only with lunch at some company, but it's really good to have this open conversation today. And you have a chance later on during the networking hours also to talk with each other. So please use this opportunity, and if you want to schedule any one-on-ones either with one of our customers or with Microsoft colleagues or with proMX, just let us know. Sales booth, the first one in the entrance of this room. So you're welcome. Thank you so much.